Okay.
Okay, I'll, call the, workshop to order.
The first item on the agenda for the workshop is the tabled item from March 14th meeting. It's the food truck request. As we found out, in the commissioners meeting and other places, that we really don't have any authority to not have the food trucks on Main Street. So Doug's request to have them on every last weekend of the month, as you see in your packet, would need to be discussed tonight and possibly, whatever the council decide, is an administrative item on the agenda.
So the only thing, he's gonna park so they don't serve out towards the road, right? And, he's not gonna block the crosswalk.
Can't.
Then I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I think the only thing we should put into either the, I don't know if there's gonna be a form in the end or whatever, is we'd have right to refuse future events if, you know, it becomes an issue. If it's shown to be a safety issue or it becomes a problem with cleanup afterwards or whatever, that can't be resolved through some regular communication, I guess.
But did I hear that right? We can't not do it?
We don't have, the county does not have an ordinance or any type of verbiage that states that he cannot have a food truck on a county road.
Okay.
We do not have verbiage in regards to not having it on Main Street. We encourage that they do it in certain locations in town as the parking lots, so they are safe, or in the park.
But we also have the right to, or do all the licensing for
So here's what I'm asking.
all those events, correct?
Yes.
The reason I'm asking the question is because I'm supportive. I wanna see how this goes, but there are some certain safety considerations we have to consider as part of this. After talking to the chief, after talking to Ben Lehman, there are some safety issues that really need to be a part of the conversation. I think it's great to go forward with it, but we can't just say,
And that's what I'm saying is,
The right of refusal is
we'd
the,
have right of refusal if something is not working out, we'd be able to tell them, hey,
so I'm tracking with you totally on that, but are there certain things that need to be a part of this conversation? Are there like cones, is there something we need to do from a safety perspective to make sure this stays safe?
that is your guys' request at this point, because nothing technically is written in regards to any protocol for
Am I
this.
worried about?
you know, I just don't know if it's gonna change anything. I mean,
Okay.
if they're serving off the sidewalk side, putting cones out shouldn't really change too much.
And we don't wanna take away any more
Right.
parking than we already have, but okay.
Right. My bigger concern is, you know, if it blocks line of sight coming off of center, and making that left-hand turn worse than normal trucks and stuff parked there. It might be down the block far enough where it's not gonna be an issue. And the other concern I'd have is if they're serving everything out of baskets or paper plates or styrofoam, just to make sure it's not a
Doesn't end up
huge-
on the street
Right,
or on
a
the
huge-
sidewalk, yeah.
But isn't that in the food truck license, like, they are required to a certain standard, they have to clean up their garbage, that calls
Okay.
back on the food truck.
Alright,
And, but every food truck that would be on Main Street has to be licensed through us, which they get that packet.
so I have no problem, you know, saying go ahead and try it. The bigger deal for me would be is if it doesn't work out after the first two or three and it's not something we think we can resolve through communication with the chief of police or the street department or whoever, if we can't find a workaround solution, we should have every right to reconsider and say, this isn't gonna work out, or at least not in that location.
Yeah, I mean, my concern is more on the county engineer's perspective, because that email that we reviewed at the last meeting was troubling.
She was overstepping her authority. She dead set against it. And then we moved on to another subject, and I said, could someone please show me the ordinance or law that we have, or we have control over that? They can't give so she was wrong.
Okay,
And
alright,
that's
well,
why I told
I
him-
appreciate you saying that because, you know, in a personal injury sphere where people get hurt in these situations where, you know, where there's deep pockets and while they have to be bonded and what have you, you know, it's a county road, it's a city road, it's maintained, it really covers so many different areas of liability that when you have a county engineer putting something like that in writing, it makes me nervous, that's all.
She was wrong, and what I told them was, if it's that big of a concern to you, create an ordinance, you know, or for whatever the rule, the law is for the county law, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
And they, so far as I know, they backed off on it.
Alright, okay, that was my only concern, then, I'm good.
There's a difference between advise and consent. She can advise, and then there are some considerations we need to have to make sure we do this safely. And then there's consent, we need something in writing from her. It sounds to me, from the commissioner, we don't need consent, we need advise. But I still think we need to be careful. Let's just do this smartly.
I would agree. Okay, any more on, because we have to vote on that later. What's next on our,
Library quotes, or library roof quotes. In your packet, I received 2 quotes. In both quotes are, price breakdown in regards to shingles or steel. James Forstner, did some calling and checking, and I think James talked to you today, Andy?
Yeah, he called both companies just to see the products they're using. It sounds like the low bidder is actually using a 50-year shingle compared to a 30-year and using all synthetic, underlayment, which is kinda newer. So it isn't like tar paper, it's actually a synthetic ceiling. More of a tie-back vapor barrier type.
so where was the second bidder from? I
Were
never
they both
saw
from
that.
Mankato?
Yeah. Mankato,
And I think we called James and some other people called around. I don't know that we had a big response from.
We had a tough time getting people out to even look at it. And I think some of it had to do with the snow still being on the roof. But this kinda gives us an idea of where we sit in regards to having the project done. And that's really where we needed to know where we were going, because I think it was a question between shingles and steel.
And there's about,
It's
60,
almost triple. Wow. It's over double for sure.
Over double?
Close to 100,000 in steel, depending, so. I don't know, I talked to James a little bit today, he said when he inspected what he could inspect of the roof, he found 10 plus areas where there was water getting through the vapor barrier and shingles or the weather sealant and shingles. So I think it's gonna be to our benefit to do it as early as possible. You know, and I guess I don't know what the budget for it looks like, but if you had money set aside, I guess I would allocate that money and try to get it done as quickly as possible before it has another summer's worth of weather on it.
I did have it in the budget, so we have $30,000 for sure allocated towards this repair.
Okay.
which would come close to what the low bid is.
Right. And from all indications, from what James said, calling both companies, it sounds like the low bid is not only the
Better product.
the lower bid, but also the better product as far as it being a 50-year compared to a 30-year shingle going on there, so.
And both of them been in business for a while.
I assume so, yeah, I guess I didn't have a real strong, background in dealing with either of them, but I'm sure if we need references or whatever as part of the bid, we'll be able to get it.
So then we'd have to put that out for bids. This was just quote.
We can go off of these quotes, it's under a certain dollar amount that we can actually accept these quotes.
So we could accept low quote tonight.
You would have to put it as an additional agenda item.
Any idea what their schedules look like as far as they probably wouldn't even want a shingle until it was probably May.
It says spring of 2022.
Yeah.
Till at least above
Probably
freezing.
May, so they get a decent seal on them. I know that there's been quite a few fall and winter shingling jobs that are missing quite a few shingles around already, so.
Andy, do you know if he talked to the gentleman at Schmidt's today?
I think so.
Because
That was a low bid, correct?
did he say anything in regards to the plywood not being included in that quote?
He didn't say anything to me about it, but I'm sure that we can verify those bids too.
The one included the plywood, the one didn't, correct?
I'm thinking Schmidt's did not include the plywood because he did not know how many sheets had to be replaced.
Replaced.
So, that would be the only other item that wouldn't be apples to apples.
So did they give
And,
No,
did
where does it say in the other one that it was,
Steve give a,
it doesn't say.
oh,
underneath
it doesn't, it just says tear off old and install new asphalt shingles.
Yeah,
So, this
And-
other one could possibly go up too.
yeah, my guess is that
I think it's, well, it says
Either of
something
those
about
are-
material. You cannot
Either-
guarantee the price on building materials,
in most cases, that's what you're gonna be dealing with is, you know, you're gonna get into it and if it's
Look on Steve's
substantially.
bid there, on the top, we will replace any sheeting that is bad on a time and material basis.
Okay. And I have no problem if we wanna, you know, try to track down other bids, but I would suggest.
I
that-
would think we wanna get it,
As soon as
accepted as
possible.
soon as you can because,
Yeah.
materials and labor is in short, supply.
Yep.
Yeah, and then they have a 10-year workmanship warranty from the date of completion.
Is that Steve or Schmidt?
Schmidt.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd have no problem, since there's two competitive bids, to accept both bids, especially knowing that it's a 50-year shingle.
I should go with that.
So we're gonna add that as number 8 then?
Yeah.
And do we have to submit something to the insurance company, letting them know that
After it's done, you mean?
Yeah.
I will discuss it with them. I'm guessing that they take that in consideration when they do their appraisal. Our appraisal was just done last year.
Okay.
Okay, we ready to move on to the next one?
I'm ready to move on to the next.
The next one is the golf course more quotes. So in your packet, there is basically one quote. And that is for a 104 Hustler from Davis
With the government price.
with the government price. Currently, I do have it on hold for tonight. Tomorrow, whatever you guys decide, then that's it.
So, and where's this, lawnmower for the golf course?
This is for the golf course. So let me rewind. The Golf Course Commission had a meeting on March 16th. At that meeting, we discussed the equipment depreciation schedule. And one of the items that is much needed, well, there's a couple items that are much needed, and this quote for a Hustler Super 104, was delivered from Carl. Greensmore is going to be virtually, we won't be able to find a Greensmore this year. And so Carl is requesting this piece of equipment. So, Andy from the Golf Commission maybe can go into more detail in regards to what was all discussed.
So yeah, we discussed, possibility of this mower, the possibility of maybe looking at a more specialized, like a five blade floating head, actual rough mower, golf course rough mower. I think, Carl actually was in Florida last week and looked at some used equipment down there and kinda came to the conclusion that this is gonna be the best option for us for this summer anyway. We're still gonna have to keep an eye out for a greens mower. We're probably never gonna be able to afford a new greens mower the way it looks, cause they're probably like 60 grand new.
They're not cheap, are they?
No. So we'll keep an eye out, and he's gonna keep an eye out for a used piece of equipment, but even the used ones he was looking at in Florida were in that $25,000 to $30,000 price range plus shipping, so, and he said they weren't in all that great a shape. So I think this is probably gonna make the most sense, and this piece of equipment anyway will be able to, be used somewhere else if need be.
So now, and I don't have a problem with accepting, because that's a budgeted item anyhow, wasn't it?
Right.
It's in their capital.
The greens mower, is St. James Golf Course gonna open this year or not, Cody?
Except no food.
Get no
I
clue.
don't think anybody knows.
The for sale sign's still up there.
I thought somebody purchased it, but I haven't heard if they're,
That fell through.
oh, it did. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, if there's other equipment available, I'm sure Carl will keep an eye out. But it sounds like it's pretty few and far between right now. The good thing about buying this and buying it locally is the fact that we know who sold it to us and we don't have to go far if anything goes wrong with it, I guess.
Over the years, he's treated us fair.
Yeah. I don't know. If you look at some of the information on that particular mower, it's got, you know, a pretty wide mowing area. This says it mows a football field in 10 minutes, so. I don't know if that's gonna be a good thing or a bad thing, as long as it's, used properly and maintained, I think it'll be fine.
It probably would mow a football field in 10 minutes, because I was on the rough at Blue Earth last year, and Blue Earth School District uses them. And
Do
they
what,
cut a lot
15?
of grass in a short time.
Okay. Well, maybe it'll save on labor then, I don't know. But we definitely need some sort of new rough mower from all accounts. But we did mention that we'll definitely wanna get rid of a piece of equipment to go along with this purchase. We don't wanna stockpile all this used equipment either. That's supposedly, you know, if there's no value in it, let's at least try to
Sell it for
get rid of
scrap.
it now instead of 20 years from now when there's nothing but scrap price on it. Whether it's the rough, pull behind rough mower or whatever it is, so. That was the thought process anyway.
Okay, any questions on that? That is actually a line item for tonight, number 3.
And the last time we bought a piece of equipment was what, 2017, Chris?
Oh, it was before,
No,
yeah, I
that-
was
that's
sitting
zero
in
turn.
Heather's spot. That was probably the last time.
There's zero turn.
Yeah, we got that 72-inch or whatever. But that's been 5 years, yeah, probably.
17.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
So which one's next now?
The groundskeeper contract, I'm still working on writing that, and once I get that done, I need to go to Patrick to take a look at it. But tonight, we can discuss, Carl's, proposed rate increase. Again, at March 16th, Golf Commission meeting, it was approved to, give Carl a raise. So his, current contract is $29,400, the proposed increase would be $31,200. So the council will need to approve this increase. Back to the contract, the current contract is being written to include expectations of the position. It is also being formatted to be in an RFP format for, maybe future, needs. So, the contract will be, we need to take that off the item number 4 until it gets approved or read through.
So we're gonna table that for right now?
Yeah.
Number 4, table. And then,
The next thing would be the seasonal equipment operator. We are struggling right now in regards to finding, work, or staff to work in the golf course and mow lawn and stuff. So we're looking at the seasonal equipment operator, which then would bring on maybe somebody that's got small engine repair experience or something like that to actually help maintain the equipment down there. So this position is new, but it is at a higher rate. And when I did the research, I'm looking at this, position coming in at 15 to, I saw one that was at 24.50. I'm not proposing that we go 24.50, but I am proposing maybe start out at 15. And
which
the
is about $2.50 an hour more than somebody that's coming back.
and that's, we'd have to address that with doing this.
I don't know, is anybody coming back?
Oh, we have one individual, James.
Oh,
That's the only one right now that's coming back?
Yeah, Jordan Henry has submitted his application, but,
That's just for weekends though, ain't it?
yeah, but Jordan's been gone for a couple of years.
part of the issue with, that seasonal help position now is it has to be somebody that's
18 years old.
Mhm.
So it's hard enough to find somebody that's willing to work for $15 an hour, but if you have to be 18 years old and certified to, or at least hold a driver's license to operate, it's really tough to find for $7.25 or whatever the minimum wage is.
So in the packet, I did put the job description. And yes, of course, high school diploma or GED must be at least 18 years old at time of hire. And then at least 1 year experience with small engine repair. I mean, we're looking for somebody that is gonna go out and mow, but when they bring it back in, they blow it off and they treat it with
Like it was
care.
theirs at home and they cleaned it up and made sure it was ready to run next time.
But
That would be
then-
nice to find, I don't know if we'll find it.
I left my magic wand at home. so-
I know, we're asking, but will a few extra dollars an hour entice somebody to come and want to mow?
I think, in talking to Carl and the golf board, I think we're really, trying to find maybe somebody that's retired and looking for something to do more than anything, but we'll have to see what kind of applications we get. I don't know that even $15 is gonna be sufficient in finding applicants, but I think it's a better shot than 10 or 12. And I guess if James wants to apply for that job, I would definitely tell him to, I guess. I don't know what you're gonna bring him back as anyway. Is there a different position or what?
Yeah, but then we're to square one.
No, that's what I mean. You're just gonna be the square one no matter what. I'm saying this job plus, there's probably 3 of these positions that we're really gonna need.
Yeah.
Whether it's James and 2 others, I just don't think you're gonna find anybody to do it for that. I could be wrong.
We have to start somewhere, and
Well,
this is,
$8 an hour.
Oh, that's not even minimum wage.
Minimum wage is 10.5 now, isn't it?
Exactly.
10:33.
Or what were we?
10 what?
10:33.
Okay, so 10:33, sorry, $2. But even that,
Yeah, I think if you need a driver's license and a diploma, you're probably gonna be 15. I think if you need a driver's license and diploma, you're gonna be,
So who did this previously?
Who did it oh, just,
Was-
Ron, are we giving out
we had Ron
names?
back in
Well-
Doctor, but I think Doc's only working a couple hours a day, and by the time you drive here at $10 an hour,
Yeah.
you're not even paying for the gas.
Right.
I think ultimately what we'd be looking for is probably 3 individuals that would operate the same piece of equipment every day. Just come and mow what they need to mow, take care of their piece of equipment, and then be around to possibly help out on scheduled projects for a couple hours beyond that a week.
Well, I'd like to see Carl's expectations, because at 31,000, I mean, I don't know.
Expectations right now is written, the individual has to mow, and trim trees and shrubs and take care of the course, maintain the greens.
What's the hour? I mean, is there hours, is there?
No, but they also need to either, bring on their own staff, or they have to work with the staff that is provided by the, city of Madelia
For Carl?
for Carl.
But there's no requirements for how many hours you have to put in
No,
for
but
that set time?
there is, a weekly or monthly update that needs to be given back to the golf commission in regards to what actually he does. I know you don't like that, but we talked about this, we can't have a contractor punch a time clock.
Prove in a different way that you're doing it. I thought there was an hourly, set amount of hours that you had to be there from start of contract till end of contract.
I think it's just a
I mean, we're not hiring an advisor to just say, hey, this is what needs to be done, and then they take off again.
No, I think that's been illustrated too, that there's gonna be a more hands-on approach taken to more than just, fertilizer application and sprinkler system management.
I could fix the whole thing, put a time clock on there, set it for how many years?
And I'd be fine with that, but I don't think you're gonna, I mean, this kind of.
If you have an objection to punching a time clock, what's the problem?
I don't know.
Cause you're not there for 4 hours a day? I mean, I don't know, I don't see what the issue is. Last year we went through this whole thing of, hey, let's give them a raise, and I think I sat here and I said, sure, we'll give them the raise, but you
Yeah,
gotta
we
punch a
never-
time clock,
we
and
never
right
did
away
that.
that was said, nope, I don't need a raise.
Yeah.
Well, what's the deal?
Well, the bigger issue is the fact that it comes around to March, and then we're talking about a new contract.
Yeah,
instead of
every year
doing
we
it
went through this.
in August or September, at the end of the previous golf season.
Okay.
So,
I just think there needs to be an hourly, I mean,
right now,
you need to put in so many hours.
right
per
now, we can't
contract.
find people to mow, much less gonna lose that, or, try to put stipulations on the manager, and he's not gonna come either. Then we're
Who's to say he doesn't come and put fertilizer on and be like, hey, you guys, I hope you guys get it mowed today.
Right.
Going back to sleepy eye.
Yeah, I don't know. That's not my.
You got a board.
What do you want me to do? Sit in the parking lot?
Well, I don't know, figure something out.
How is it the hours track now? I have no idea.
They're not,
They're not.
that's the issue. That's the issue I have anyways, I don't know if anybody else has it, but I do. Because even, but we're not gonna go on there.
But they're without. I mean, I suppose you could have them fill out, what was done for what amount of time every week. Fill out an actual timesheet and take his word for it there too. But
Yeah.
I'm not tracking.
And I'm not saying that we need to micromanage him, or, that I don't.
Or when the time is, it's just that the time is done.
Yeah. No matter who we hire,
In all
or who does it.
in all actuality, if it gets done, and he's making sure it's all getting done, I don't really care who does it, but.
But what's all that gets done? I mean, just because you mow fairways 1, 2, and 3, and whatever the time you're there, doesn't mean you can't, if you have time left, go trim trees, go pull weeds, go spray weeds, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know
Do
either.
something. If you have a set amount of hours that you need to be there.
I don't know, I'm there at weeknights, I'm not there during
I'm
the
not
morning,
saying
so.
Can I ask a question? Do you wanna propose his rate increase, and you wanna table that along with his contract?
I guess I'd like to see what,
We can table that along with it.
I'd like to see the expectations before we,
Is there an area we're not satisfied with right now? Is there
I
something
just
about the
want-
golf course we're not happy with?
I'm just saying that if we're gonna pay somebody $31,000 a year, I wanna make sure we're getting our money's worth. I mean,
Yeah,
I agree with that completely.
cause another 9, 10,000 would look appealing to some people.
Right.
And they could do that and be done.
well, and I think
So-
that's the whole point of it is, that's why it should go to RFP. Like if I had his, existing contract for 31.9 or whatever it is, and I had another RFP that said somebody's gonna be there 40 hours a week for the entirety of the golf season for $40,000, I think that would be a lot harder decision, or maybe a lot easier decision than just, if I know for a fact that other person's gonna be there,
Yeah.
eating up all those hours on the mower and cutting down on
Outside help.
outside help and everything else. But it hasn't gone to RFP since Carl was
Well,
hired,
it's- Yeah.
and now's not the time to
No,
necessarily
I'm-
do that
no.
either.
But that's why it's being designed for future use
Right.
as an RFP. We'll
Yeah.
use it as a contract.
But instead of changing it 3 times from now till then, I'd like to see.
But, you know, by next council meeting, Chris will have the contract, or the contract language spelled out and reviewed.
Yeah.
And then we can make adjustments accordingly. And, you know, we could table both of them for tonight, because that way everybody's happy. Well, kind
Well,
of.
I'm fine with the seasonal operator, I mean, but you still gotta figure out what,
So I'm gonna ask the new guy question again, Cody, you said we've had this conversation before?
Yeah, we've been.
yeah.
We've had this
Year,
conversation
before.
about every spring. Well, not last year, because he didn't put in a
Well, now we're
request
trying to get in
for,
front of that with the
Yeah,
RFP.
there was a request for a raise last year.
And-
was there?
No, it's
And then when we,
denied.
then when we said it was,
So,
there was
so,
gonna be stipulations, then that
Then it
request was.
Then it was, oh, none of mine, I don't need it.
we're gonna try and get in front of this with an RFP.
Yeah,
When will that be ready?
next council.
For next?
As
for the-
soon as,
okay.
I mean, I've already
Okay.
started it, I'm pretty much 3/4 done, I just have to send it.
But I think the
So we have a solution. Am I missing something?
No, I think the problem is for this upcoming season, the RFP should really go out in August or September for 2023.
That I'm totally
Not
tracking,
for
so we
2022.
we buy ourselves one more season.
Right.
And then we do this going forward, so that
Right.
next
Yes.
March, should some of us be lucky enough to be still on this council, we're not still having this conversation.
But I would say that that's fine in tabling it until the expectations and everything are spelled out. I have no problem with that.
And like I said, I'm fine with the seasonal operator, but we need to figure out what we're gonna do with the returning employee also.
Right. And I guess, I don't know why he wouldn't return as a seasonal operator if that position's open. I would think there's gonna have to be more than one of those seasonal operators.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting, yeah.
So you weren't planning on there just being one of those positions open, were you, Chris?
No, there can be as many. I mean, if you have 3 pieces of equipment out there, we'll bring them all in as a seasonal equipment operator.
So I think,
How many people on average do we have as seasonal down there?
Just on the golf course? Isn't it 4 on the course?
I thought it was 3 total.
There's, well,
James, Ron,
Doc.
Damaris
Doc, Damaris,
and Carl.
and Carl.
So if you had 2 seasonal operators, Carl, and you're gonna have Jordan, that sounds good, for the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
but it also sounds like anybody that slots into that lawnmower operator is gonna be at this position.
But it comes with, I mean, are you a seasonal or are you a seasonal equipment operator? are you running around with just the rake? Or are you actually on a piece of equipment
Well,
gonna take care of it?
I don't think if you hire someone, you gotta say you're
I think
only on a
any-
mower.
I think anybody that's gonna be on a mower is gonna have to be at
Yeah.
this seasonal operator's position.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So
basically.
I guess what's the problem with James coming back?
Oh, no, I have no issues on that. But
Oh, I'm
we
saying-
we need to make sure that we still get somebody else.
Oh, yeah,
But
but
that
Oh,
goes
yeah.
back to.
No, it
but
wasn't
what I'm
just
saying is
one.
James would come back at this
Yeah,
new
but
position.
how many positions we have for seasonal operator goes back to what are the,
Right,
for Carl,
right,
what do we expect from him?
yeah.
So,
Can I at least get approval to post it and see what we actually get tonight?
yeah,
Okay.
I don't have a problem with that either,
hopefully more than one person applies.
because it's already March and people that are looking for a job are already out there.
No, I-
Especially if they're 18.
We're in trouble.
Okay. We ready to move on to the next topic?
Okay, is it an easy one?
The fifth officer for the police department. Mr. Christensen, Mr. Groot, if you would start this one.
Anyhow, as we were researching, since Rob took over as chief, approximately 10 years ago, we've replaced 7 officers so far. So 2/3 of those officers have moved closer to home or taken their dream job. So we're not gonna retain those people after they get enough time in. So as we sit right now, we have Travis, Colin, David, and Rob. So, and the odds, because if you do the percentages, if we replace 7 officers in 10 years, the odds are not on our side that we shouldn't start advertising for the 5th officer and fill that position, because attrition is probably gonna take Colin somewhere as he gets a little bit more experience. I'm thinking I'm gonna keep Travis for a while yet, you know, but he's already looking at bigger and better things because he's had enough time in and his management skills are getting better. So, and Rob, because he's getting old,
He's got the old comments.
He's not wrong.
you know, and, you know, is he gonna go and look for something that's easier on a gentleman with a lot of experience? You know, so, that is why I would like to start advertising for that 5th officer. Would it cost us money? Yes, it would. But it would also take down that overtime stuff and all the other, problems that we have when we get down to 2 officers. We don't wanna be there anymore.
I guess,
Go ahead.
I guess my hope is with a 5th officer that we don't lose people because the scheduling is better. And I mean, I don't know what it costs to train in a new officer, but,
It cost us about $100,000 to put another officer in the,
okay, so if you're
Squad.
doing that every year and a half, not even
basically about 16 months, I think.
Yeah,
That average
so-
out.
You know, if you hire a 5th one, it makes that schedule easier, to
Well-
where people would wanna stick around.
And if you talk to any of the other chiefs or any of the other sheriffs in the area, their biggest problem at retaining officers in their department is if they're running short-staffed, they have to work too many rotating weekends and they want free time.
Well, I know
Isn't
with
that
the
pretty much
sheriff's
what the
department-
commissioners did, Jim?
The sheriff's department just hired another one, and I know, you know, I can just tell by talking to them, the morale is
It's
a lot
better
than it
because
was
they're not
2
working so
months
many
ago.
hours.
Well, and they know that they're gonna be on that set schedule for
And
6
if I-
to 8 months, whatever it may be.
And if I could add something to that conversation, the part 2 of this to me is, I did not know, I mean, how many officers does it take? Because this is not, that wasn't my bailiwick. But as I started to dig into this and start to have conversations, and I'm glad that you're here as a former mayor, because this conversation was solved about 20 years ago. And the reason was because I think there are a number of things that happen in this town that I'm not sure everybody understands is happening in this town. And if you have that fifth officer, you start to do things like open up investigations. You can start to have things like better enforcement. And I think we're missing that piece of it. Totally get the schedule part of it, completely agree with that. But I think there are some pieces, second and third order
Yeah,
effects
I'm
that
just
we've gotta
looking,
consider.
I'm mostly looking at the retainage of keeping these guys here.
I'm with you
making
totally on
them do it
that.
at home.
I totally, yes, and I would love that. But I think the part two of that is
Yeah.
that sometimes you get these young kids that come out of school and they wanna go be Hawaii 5-0 up in Minneapolis.
I don't know if anybody wants to go there.
Well,
Let's
okay,
do better.
let me use another example, but you know what I mean, they want the
Yeah.
excitement, they wanna go do real police work kind of stuff. But then you get the other folks that want to do small town policing.
Yeah.
And those are the ones we wanna retain. We may not retain everybody, but I think we could get after them if, to your point, if we have a better shift schedule and we are allowing them to do other things, like the detective work that's may or may not be getting done when you're short officers.
Yeah.
I think before, you know, actually putting this to a vote or anything, it'd be nice to kind of see what the numbers would look like. One, what the true cost of a fifth officer would be, but then two, what the offset for overtime, part-time, you know, hours that are being paid out, difference in on-call hours if there is any, all that stuff kind of broken down as to what the true cost, you know, plus and minus would look like. Would probably be nice to have that kind of number so we know what we're really getting into. Now, there's a, you know, probably a pretty good chance that that's gonna be a flexible number anyway because of the fact that if Colin or somebody moves on, we're looking at a, you know, fifth position again too, or a hiring period or whatever, and then making sure the next officer again works out is always a crapshoot too, but it would be nice to know if we are running at full force, what that looks like compared to paying the overtime and stuff that we have been paying in the past.
Right. This year, that officer we just put on cost us right around $88,000. So now, to your point is, we would have that other person and that would drop some of those overtime hours and some of those fill-in days.
Right.
You know, so, and that number, Andy, I don't know how to produce that number.
I know it's gonna cost us more money than what we're paying
Oh,
now,
but
but,
I'm just saying that, so say you bring on the fifth officer, once he's trained in, you're through that train-in period, and you're running a normal schedule, what's your weekly payroll look like compared to your weekly payroll when you're running 3 officers?
I understand, but at some, I mean, we need to make a decision because I think it's been drug out for long enough. It's been,
Oh,
you know, and
no, I
we're gonna lose officers soon enough.
No, I
We've been losing officers.
I mean,
don't disagree.
Yeah,
I think there are opportunities out there we have missed because of that.
yeah. So-
I've been in on the last 5 hiring cycles. I've got to
So,
do
I guess my concern is this. It is going to cost a bit more. And I think to your point, I think there will be a balance there as far as the overtime and other things go, but we're also going to get more.
Right.
And I think we have to balance that out. And I guess my part is, and I didn't articulate this very well, is this conversation was had 20 years ago.
Right.
And things were not as good as they are now. And so we kind of got through that. We had the 2008, 2009 problem where the recession, you know, the money wasn't where it was needed to be, and we couldn't do what we need to do now, but we're back and we need to move on. I really would argue that yes, we're gonna pay a little bit more, but you're going to get more for that, and I think there are some problems that could be coming down the pipe we could be in front of.
Chris, I'm sorry, does the city have any ARP money left?
Yeah, we do, but,
You can use it for
yeah, but then you're still gonna have to budget that money.
I know,
I
but
mean, I say just
we-
take the hit either way you
that.
look
We
at
maybe
it.
kicked the can down the road 2 years, but our look, and we wanted to save what we had, and we're using that for 2022 and 2023.
Yeah.
The
Well,
ARP
that's what I'm
money
getting at is-
Kinda already had an ear tag on it.
I will not ask Kelly, but.
No, our money kinda had an ear tag
Okay.
on our thing, only because of the new building
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
either way you look at it, you guys, you're gonna have to increase your budget. I don't know any way around it.
But I'm just.
We're- no,
I mean,
I-
that would've
I
bought us
respectfully
2
disagree.
years, but it's
We're not gonna
still-
increase our budget, we're gonna return our budget to what it once was. And I think that's a
Technically.
very important distinction. We're not increasing the police department's budget, we're returning it to what it once was. And I think there's something to that. And the other part of it is that I don't want to have a 5th officer so that we can keep 4. I would like to have 5 officers.
I think something you guys might also wanna consider that's not just like a numeric value when you're talking about small town policing is that you're filling in the spaces that you, can't fill with overtime, with people who are not in the community, not familiar with the usual suspects, not familiar with the people that are in this community, and you're also losing out on the idea or ideal of community policing because they're not familiar faces. I mean, those are things that aren't quantifiable, and that's been happening as long as I've been the city attorney, and it's challenging because, I mean, I know the usual suspects of this department, but I don't know, like, when somebody else issues a report, have they ever testified before? I've found that a couple of the deputies or part-time officers didn't know what to expect out of a jury trial. And I have to then teach them, because they don't teach that in cop school, that's one thing I've learned. Is they do not know, they do not teach them to testify, they do not teach them to stand up against cross-examination or what to expect in a trial. So, just my 2 cents on the whole thing, not to mention Rob's sanity for that matter, so.
And to your point, maybe that's what we really need, not, and it's maybe not just in this room, but to sell it to the public as well. What are the citizens of Adelia going to be getting of this 5th officer?
Yeah, I do think that's a great point.
Is it gonna be more in school? Is it gonna be more community outreach? Is it gonna be, you know, where are those hours gonna end up? Is it gonna be, you know, Rob being in school more, or having more time to do, you know, advanced training or whatever it is? But a breakdown of what we're actually getting for that, you know, investment would be pretty beneficial, I think, to try to sell to the public.
Andy, I think that's a great point. My concern is, though, how we tell that story is as important as that we tell that story, because there are going to be some things that I don't think a lot of people in this town understand is happening in this town.
Right.
Right.
And I'm not sure we want to go there. You know,
Yeah.
we got to be careful how we go there.
Sure.
There was a drug problem back in the late 90s, a big drug problem that we don't have right now.
Well, maybe not quite.
Well.
Well, okay.
Let's get into detail.
But
So
how many people in Medelia, in a town this size, understand that's a threat here?
Well, it is a big threat.
Even if we put this on the administrative items tonight, we could still come back in 2 weeks and present it, or is that not something?
I don't think the chief's looking for an answer until the next
Oh.
budget cycle.
The budget cycle is already starting.
Yeah, no.
So-
No,
That's
for next, I'm
okay.
talking next fiscal year.
Oh, gee.
I guess
No.
I'm, you know, I'm open to the idea of starting to search or start putting feelers out there to see if we have people that are interested in the position.
No,
But I would much rather prefer
ASAP.
Oh, okay.
to give
Okay.
Yeah.
Chris a chance to, you know, take a look at the budget for 2023 and try and get something put in place for that.
But even if we advertise for the 5th officer tonight, we won't even start interviews till July right
Yeah,
now.
that's what I'm saying, is that even if we
So,
put it out
and then
tonight,
by the time the hiring process, it's August.
doesn't mean we have to hire somebody.
No, we need to advertise for the 5th officer and
That's-
see if we can get a pool of people that are qualified.
I would rather see it go out sooner than later, and then next meeting we can present the numbers to everything else, but at least it's out there.
Right, and if we advertise,
I don't know if we can do that, is that?
we can add it for
The best we
number,
can.
It's up to you. I will just tell you that there's about 60 departments at any one given time right now advertising, and there are not going to be a lot of applications coming in. I mean, to even think about
No, but I
interviewing
think
in
that
July.
makes Cody's point.
I'll be
Let's
honest,
move down.
I'm not worried about the money, I'm more worried about trying to find.
Yeah.
Find
So
somebody
that-
to-
But we get to control
The
that.
money is.
We make those decisions with the personnel committee, with the police commission, we make those decisions, so.
Yeah, that's not something you have to like necessarily have a poll hold or have a public meeting. You want to add an employee if you're concerned about constituents knowing the reasoning or thought process behind the decision, then that's your politicking. It's not, it's this board can authorize that position.
Well, I mean, I need to be transparent about it,
Well, yeah,
Right.
But that's why we're having it.
And that's why the papers here,
Right here.
they're very
Yeah.
transparent.
And I think you both have a great point. We have to tell that story.
so I would like to see, like it to go on administrative items tonight for approval to put it out.
It's just easier to get convictions.
So that'd be number 9 then,
The
right?
officers
That's
are
right.
and have worked with them before and know that they're capable of testifying. It's
Yeah.
easy then. It's just easy. I can sit there and be firm on an offer and never move from it. When I know that Rob or Travis or even now Colin are the
Well-
officers involved, the other deputies or fill-ins from other jurisdictions, I may have to like set aside 3 or 4 hours to make sure that they're ready to testify. I remember Deputy Keelis, I'm not trying to pick on him, and he's a super nice guy and very reliable and has filled in admirably, but he hadn't had experience in testimony. And so I set aside significant time to try to help him through that. Now, thankfully, it was on a case that we had very little likelihood of prevailing, but we had to prosecute it. So, but that's just an example.
If I could just foot down 2 things and then I'll get off this subject. The 2 things are this. 1, I completely agree, we need to make sure we hire the right officer. Understood. The second thing is, we're not adding to the budget, we're returning the budget to where it once was.
Yeah, because we never formally, let go of the 5th position.
No, truth be told, that, you know, when I started here almost 22 years ago now, we had 5 full-time officers, including the chief and a part-time secretary. And we've successfully run this department with 4 officers and no secretary. But it's been an absolute challenge. When you're losing an officer once every year and 3 months, that's what it pretty much averages out to, year and 3 months. You're constantly training and you're running below minimum staffing levels. You can't get anything done but the bare minimum. And you're, you know, and this year is a prime example. We have had somebody try to run somebody over with a car. We've had a stabbing. We've had all kinds of drug crimes and domestics that have occurred. 2020 we were at 17 investigations. 21 we were at 20. This year so far, up as of today, we're at 34. So we're double what we were 2 years ago. So and I mean that's a lot. It's taxing, and we're just now we lost Kyle in May, and we're just now this weekend will be the final evaluation for David to get him back on the road and get him out on by himself. So it's taken almost a year to get us back to that spot, and we've been running at bare, you know, below minimum levels. So everybody's a little bit tired and exhausted, and we're happy that we're trying to get back to where we're at with 4. You can run it with 4, but you know, you are a heartbeat away from somebody leaving and just doing the bare minimum that you can. And I think, you know, this city expects that we're going to do the very best that we can. That's my hope. And I think when you are, I think your goal is to have a 5-officer department with a good rotation and keep people as long as you can, Cody. But realistically, you know, we're a small town. People always are looking for bigger, better. We can try and make things as good as we can for them, but there's always an expectation that somebody's probably going to take a job here and work for a couple years and go. And we have very good track records of people working here 2, 3, 4 years, but over that cycle, somebody's leaving. So, you know, if we're having 5 officers and now you're working with your bare minimum of 4, that's better than, you know, working a year that way if you have a hard time getting that position replaced. than being at below minimum levels where you're basically have no officer staffed at all, and we're on call. Coming in at, you know, the response time is gonna be lower. So I think people have the expectation that when you call 911, somebody's gonna be there within a minute or two in this community. That's what I would like to see.
And Rob didn't bring this conversation up, the mayor brought this up, so, you know, because I can see the stress that's going around, and if we can minimize our, stress, everybody seems to be a little bit happier. So, we'll add it as number 9 for the 5th officer. What's next?
That's it.
Holy cow. Then I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the workshop.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I just wanted that second.
Jumped right in there.
Too many to jump right now. I had to have a second.